Superman is here, and it's one of the most anticipated releases of 2025. I saw the teaser, and I was curious. I saw the theatrical trailer, and I dared to be excited. Then I saw the final trailer, and I was like, something doesn't feel quite right here. I mean, it's colorful, it looks really well shot, but why is he quipping so much? That's more like a Spider-Man thing, isn't it? I was concerned this was going to be too drastic a shift on Superman's character and personality, and is it? No, it's fine. In fact, I like Henry Cavill, but to me, David Cornsweet feels way more like Superman. Clark Kent, I'm not really sure about. I think it's okay. He's not really as quiet and unassuming as I would have expected, but we really don't see that much of him. But one of the key things to get right isn't just Superman, it's Superman and Lois. They don't opt to go with the conventional approach here, and I think it works pretty well. More than that, the chemistry between the two of them is way more effective than Henry and Amy. If we were gonna have a follow-up to Margot Kidder, Rachel Brosnahan is way closer. She feels like an actual story-chasing journalist, and the way this plays into the dynamic between the two of them works nicely. Jimmy is also used pretty well and gets some good laughs. It's easy to force him to the sidelines and keep him there, but they do more with him in this. And I liked Wendell Pierce as Perry, though we really don't see that much of him. And of course, Alan Tudyk proves that no robot should ever be voiced by anyone else. Oh, and Crypto. Yeah, he looks pretty good, and I love dogs, but they don't really seem to know what to do with him. He's mostly just there. And then there's Lex. I like Nicholas Hoult. I love the movie about a boy, which was his big breakout role as a kid, and he's had a pretty impressive career since then. And here we find him as Lex Luthor. He's got the look, which I guess is easy to have. I mean, put a suit on me and I'm Lex Luthor. But he's supposed to be an evil genius. Sometimes I believe that here, because of the technology and resources he somehow has access to. But other times it's so outrageous that just accept it doesn't quite do the trick. I wonder if they could have explained a bit better how he has all this stuff that he makes use of, but I suppose it's the same issue with Batman. He's rich and we just have to accept it. But with all that genius and resource access, he also makes some pretty stupid decisions and takes some seriously unnecessary risks. He's supposed to be equal in intellect to Superman's strength, but it really doesn't feel that way. I like parts of this Lex Luthor, but I guess I didn't find him as strong a character as I was hoping. And the monologuing. He even acknowledges that he wouldn't do it if he wasn't so confident that he was going to be successful. But this has been addressed in another movie so effectively that I'm amazed people still go along with it. There's a lot of expository dialogue, and this particular style of it has kind of been unacceptable since The Incredibles. And after all that, I think we're asked to suspend our disbelief a bit too often, both in Lex Luthor's capability, but also in where the plot takes us. But even with that, we probably could have had a great movie if we focused on these characters that I mentioned, especially if we wanted to make this a fresh new introduction to Superman. And I guess it is, but they also introduced Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with their performances, and it's not as bad as movies like Spider-Man 3 where they have way too much going on. In fact, considering how many people are here, I actually thought they did a pretty good job with some of the funniest bits coming from these characters. But it pulls the focus away from Superman enough that at times it feels a little less like his movie. The movie picks up 3 years after Clark introduced the world to Superman. Metahumans have been around for centuries, and so Superman, in some respects, is kind of late to the party. But he stands out in that he's less a career superhero and more someone who genuinely cares about humanity. But he should also be in another league compared to these other guys, and instead they all sort of seem at the same level. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but I'm also not sure it does him any favors in his own movie. But anyway. In order to make an exciting story about someone who's invulnerable and invincible, you need to put him in a situation where we're like, how's he gonna get out of this one? And they do that. Not perfectly, but they do that. If you've seen the trailers, they really don't give much away. The real meat of the movie comes after most of what you've seen, which is refreshing. And you can tell from the trailers, but the whole movie is really creatively shot, with some of the best visuals I've seen in ages. Now I say some very intentionally because some of what we see is genuinely some of the best I've seen. This guy in particular. But that creates such big shoes to fill for the rest of the movie that the moments that aren't as impressive really stand out. There aren't that many of them, but there's definitely a few. And I mentioned it before, but I think I'm seeing a general uptick in cameras being used creatively. And this movie is no exception. There are some beautifully crafted shots here that keep things interesting and immersive. You can only show a guy flying really fast through the sky so many times before you have to start getting creative, and we passed that milestone a long time ago. Which is to say, this is a breath of fresh air from the last few years of DC. It's not perfect, but it's a leap in the right direction. It's a bit corny and cheesy, but then, so are comic books. It's maybe not as funny as it's trying to be, but it's funny. It looks amazing more often than not, and the performances are pretty solid. Really, it doesn't feel the way DC has felt for over a decade, which is a very good thing. And though it now feels a bit closer to how Marvel feels, or at least felt in its heyday, the pendulum hasn't swung too far that way either. It's the closest to Superman we've been in a long time, and time will tell if James Gunn will lead an upward trajectory for the future of DC movies. Here's hoping. And as always, let me know your thoughts below. Would I be a shoo-in for Lex Luthor? Or was Nicholas Hoult the best there's ever been? Let me know below. God bless. I love you guys. We'll talk soon.